All right. Yeah.
Everyone to our committee meetings for Monday, June 16th. We're going to start off with Economic Development and Tourism Committee.
Good afternoon, thank you. We'd like to open up the Economic Development and Tourism at 6:01. There are no action items for the month of June, but we do have a guest speaker. If I can get Connor Gillis to come up and what's the presentation?
So good evening. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it. I have some handouts that I'm gonna send around. This is one of them is just a local economic report for Greene County, some of the data that we have, and then this brochure is just a resource guide for some of the things that our state association and national association could potentially partner with the county on. So I'll pass this around if you don't mind. So again, thank you all for having me. My name is Connor Gillis. I work with the New York State Association of Realtors. My specific role is a field representative. I work closely with several of our local realtor boards. One of them being the Columbia Greene Board of Realtors. I have a couple folks with me tonight who can answer any questions if you have any. Jason Walsh is the 2025 president of the Columbia Greene Board of Realtors. And Randy Vanucci is the CEO of the Columbia Greene Board of Realtors. So if there's something that I can't answer, you have questions on, these two can certainly help you out with that. So Michael had reached out and asked me to come. We certainly appreciate that. There are a couple of things specifically that we wanted to highlight, and I'll get to those well further along in the slide. I just wanted to give a quick brief update on the housing market here in New York and then specifically Greene County. I know a lot of you are attuned to what's going on in the housing market, but I just wanted to sort of put some numbers to it. So the latest data that we have at NYSAR is from the month of April. So we put out housing data every month. The most recent we have is in April. So existing home sales in New York have declined in April. Statewide housing inventory is up year over year. And then this last bullet here is really sort of the issue that, is at the heart of, one of the issues at the heart of this housing crisis is the increase in mortgage rates. So currently right now we're at 6.73. That has come down since April 2024, but obviously still very high comparatively if you look at other years. This is just a visualization of some of the things that I'm talking about. So this is from April 2024 to April 2025. You'll see the differences in new listings, pending sales, closed sales, days on market. The next slide is going to talk about Greene County specifically, but this is just a visual representation of sort of what we're seeing in the housing market across New York State. So in Greene County, April of 2024 to April 2025, new listings is up 13%. Closed sales is up almost just over 19%. The median sales price of a home here in Greene County has increased from last year. It's now $350,000. You'll see down here in the key takeaways that prior to the pandemic in 2019, the median sales price was $196,000. So that has obviously increased significantly. Homes for sale has gone down. Your months of supply has also gone down about 11%. So just the key takeaways, obviously new listings are up, or sales are up. In terms of months of supply, that number essentially is if you were to put no more homes on the market starting today, how much inventory do you have before you would have zero? So you're at 7 months of supply. 5 to 6 months of supply is considered a healthy housing market. So you guys are doing really well with that months of supply number. I wanted to take a moment to just touch on some of the stuff that the legislature has done this year related to housing. So the Senate just wrapped up for the year. The Assembly is still working. There may be a couple more things that get done, but for the most part, this is sort of what the big items in housing that took place in the budget. So the budget and the legislature enacted a housing access voucher pilot program for 4 years to provide rental assistance in the form of vouchers to eligible individuals and families who are homeless, face imminent loss of housing with an income of no more than 50% of the AMI. So that's going to begin March 1st of next year. There was also a proposal that passed in the budget that prohibits institutional real estate investors that own 10 or more single and or two-family residences and have $30 million or more in net value assets from purchasing a single or two-family home for 90 days. So there's a waiting period that those entities have to wait prior to them purchasing a home. So that goes into effect soon, July 1st, 2025. The budget also provides $40 million for the homeowner protection program to help homeowners avoid foreclosure, provides $20 million to support a lead abatement program for areas outside of New York City. That's going to be administered through the State Housing Trust Fund Corporation. It also provided $100 million for a pro-housing supply fund, along with $5.25 million protectable assistance grants for certified pro-housing communities. I imagine there are probably several communities in Greene County that have certified as pro-housing communities, and that was something that the governor put in her budget last year. And this just assists municipalities with critical infrastructure projects necessary to create new housing, such as sewer, water, infrastructure upgrades. This is in addition to the $650 million that was allocated in 2024. Provides a $2 million for the Greene Affordable Pre-Electrification Program. To fund the green rehab projects, prioritizing those in defined disadvantaged communities. Provides $50 billion for additional starter homes, modular homes, and provides $40 million to repair and rehab vacant apartments outside of New York City, 5 units or less, with grants not to exceed 70 units. So one of the topics that Michael had asked or we wanted to touch on was good cause eviction. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with this good cause eviction program. So this passed in 2024. The key difference between what was originally proposed and what ended up, there's a couple of differences, but the version that ended up being passed allows for a municipal opt-in. So prior to that change, it would have went into effect for every community in the state. So now there's a municipal opt-out or opt-in, so municipalities can opt in. The village of Catskill has opted into good cause eviction, which I'm sure many of you know. So the key elements here of good cause eviction prohibits the eviction or removal of tenants from all housing accommodations without good cause, but exempts the following housing accommodations. So premises owned by a small landlord. So the bill that was passed by the legislature defines a small landlord as anyone who owns 10 units or less. However, the municipalities who decide to enact good cause eviction can change that definition. So they can change it to 1 if they want. And that's essentially what all of the municipalities have been doing. They're changing that definition to 1, which then allows for more people to be included in a good cause eviction law. So if you own 2 rental properties, let's say in Greene County, and your municipality passes good cause eviction, you would be under the auspices of the law. So that is a change that the municipalities can make if they decide to do that, and all of the municipalities have done that.
But we're not included in that.
Correct, the county's not. The municipalities have to affirmatively opt into the law. So the village of Catskill so far has done that. It also exempts owner-occupied housing with no more than 10 units. Condos and cooperatives are also exempt. New construction is also exempt. That was a change in the law, in the final version that was passed. There was no new construction exemption. So any units with a CO issued after 2009, up to 30 years after that issuance. So if you had a CO issued on 1/1/2019, you would be exempt for 15 years. If you had one in 2010, you would be 16 years. So it's after that date specifically. And then another thing that the municipalities are allowed to change with the law is the percentage of fair market rent. So the law that was passed by the state set the level at 245% of the fair market rent. Most of the municipalities are changing that number to 345%, which again, just allows for more units to be included in good cause eviction. The idea is wanting to protect more people. So that's why the municipalities will change that specific condition. So these are the, I won't go through these all, but these are the ways in which you can get evicted if you're a tenant. So again, it's pretty much everything that you would, need to evict the tenant for is allowed. One thing I'll point out here is the allowed rent increase that you're allowed to raise the rent is 5% plus the consumer price index, or 10%, whichever number is lower. So if the CPI, let's say, is 3.1%, you would only be allowed to raise the rent by 8.1%. So if it's anything, it's capped at 10, but if the CPI, whatever the CPI is, you can add that to 5, and that will be your allowable rent increase. Again, good localities that opt in can modify the fair market rent threshold and the definition of a small. And these are all the municipalities that we're aware of that have adopted good cause eviction. You'll notice a lot of these are in the Hudson Valley and Catskills. Albany was the first municipality to do it. Pleasant Valley is the most recent municipality to do it, but those are the cities, towns, and villages so far that have adopted it. Short-term rentals. Before I came to this meeting, I had a conversation with Kelly Fay from Airbnb. I know that she's working with a lot of the counties on this new opt-in law that Senator Hinchy had sponsored. So the governor signed this into law. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this. Setting a registry system, and then counties have to affirmatively decide if they want to opt out of this. So I'm sure this has been a topic of conversation for you guys, so I won't go too in-depth on this unless anyone has any questions. So that was something that was passed last year, and the governor signed it into law this year. And this is just a chart that I grabbed from the NISAC website, which just indicates sort of what your county STR status is. If you don't opt in, you have no tax obligations. If you have the authority to apply lodging tax to STRs, your platform implications would be you begin to collect and remit taxes on the 1st of March.
We did opt in, and I believe our RFP is out right now. Got it through contract.
Yeah, so I know a lot of counties are working through this right now, this new law. This is just statistics that I pulled on short-term rentals for Greene County. So this is from Rabu.com, one of these, AirDNA is another website that has a lot of this data, that pulls this data. Just kind of gives you an idea of sort of what the market is for Airbnbs here in Greene County. Currently almost 1,300 Airbnb listings. A lot of this stuff I'm sure is, probably pretty familiar to you guys. We just did want to provide a visual for that. An occupancy tax. I know occupancy tax is something that a lot of counties are looking at, and who don't have it already. These are the counties that have occupancy tax in New York State. Generally, it's either 4 or 5%. In 2023, Ulster County, obviously not apples to apples comparison, but Ulster County collected just over $3 million through its occupancy tax. They recently just raised their percentage from 2 to 4%. So they anticipate $6.3 million to be generated as a result of that increase. A lot of the counties will use that money for transportation and housing related issues. Another example here, Dutchess County to the south estimates that it will receive $4.8 million in revenue annually. Assessor versus appraiser. Want to just talk about assessments briefly. I know it's a thing that municipalities are always sort of wrestling with. Assessors and appraisers, what's the difference? Assessors are local government officials, you all know that. Appraisers are people who are employed by the government or private entities assigned to provide professional appraisal duties. Also included in this state budget, the governor secured legislation that makes it a violation of the state's human rights law to discriminate when providing real estate appraisals or in making such services available. This is a proposal that we were obviously in support of. We, don't want any, bias in the appraisal process. So that did get included in this year's budget. I'll just note here, Senate Bill 4805 by Senator Ryan outside of Buffalo. This bill was passed this session, requires the state to handle the income verification process for senior citizen tax exemption. So it shifts the conducting of the income verification process for senior citizen tax exemption from municipalities to the Department of Taxation and Finance. Senior citizens who qualify for the exemption currently must visit their local town assessor to apply. This would make that the state's duty to do that. So just something to be aware of for your localities. Takes a little bit of the burden off the local assessor. But obviously the senior citizens are gonna have to know that it's now handled through the state.
That's a little better than the cannabis rollout.
Cannabis rollout still happening.
What could go wrong?
It's still going on. So I wanted to just touch on too before I end. Our state association, the National Association of Realtors, has a plethora of grants and programs that are available to localities, municipalities, counties to help you guys when you're making decisions, when you're looking at growth opportunities. One of the things that I'll mention, which I've used in the past that has been really beneficial, is our state and local polling program. So this offers us and the county, we can do a countywide poll to assess opinions on various issues that are happening. If there's a specific topic that you guys are interested in getting feedback from the community on, this program costs us no money. It doesn't cost anything. We work with a vendor to commission this poll. We would work with county, with local municipalities to sort of figure out what are the questions. And I'll get to an example of that here in a second. Our housing opportunity grants, I don't know why that font is different. I find it nice. Housing opportunity grants support activities that address affordable housing issues in the community. Housing opportunity grants also support new projects or enhance existing efforts that have growth potential. So an example of this, the town of Lake George a couple years ago was doing a workforce development housing study. So we were able to provide them a $7,500 grant to help with the cost of that study. So that's something that would absolutely fall under the guise of that grant. So that, just as an example, the brochure that I passed out has a little bit more information on that. Rural outreach grants are also something that we use frequently. They support state and local realtor association initiatives, trainings, forums, events, studies, ordinance drafting on a wide range of rural issues such as broadband, a lot of rural, septic, open space preservation, environmental standards, planning and zoning issues. This is just an example of a poll that we did in Warren County a couple of years ago. So the county of Warren at the time was looking at short-term rental regulation and also a septic transfer law. So we worked with them, commissioned the poll, and gathered feedback from the residents of Warren County. So you'll see here, this is just the example of sort of what will come back to us. So we'll get this from American Strategies, which is our vendor, which will show, support for various things that we'll ask regarding short-term rentals, whatever it is. And we'll gather good feedback from the community. So you guys, if you wanted to choose to do that, we'll sort of know where the residents in the county stand on certain things. So we'll help you obviously your policy making. This, as I mentioned again, this is they were looking at a septic inspection act, transfer law, you can see that there was, pretty significant support for that type of, legislation. Obviously, up in the Warren County, you have Lake George, you have all these bodies of water, so it's certainly crucial for them to want to protect those bodies of water. That's all that I have. If there are questions for me or Randy or Jason, I'm happy to answer them. My contact information is on the documents that I gave you, so feel free to reach out for anything, questions on anything. Yes.
Yeah.
Michael.
Regarding the occupancy tax,
Yeah.
have you guys received any feedback from the businesses that are required to collect the occupancy tax, whether the pros and cons on any of this? Or, any sort of feedback?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't gotten any feedback specifically from the businesses. I can certainly look into that and let you guys know sort of what the feedback is. I can only speak to, the counties that I referenced there in terms of their collection, but I can certainly, gather that information and get that to you, sort of what the feedback is from.
Yeah, I guess what I'm referring to is that, it's sort of been like a negative from the business.
I haven't heard any groundswell of negative, thoughts on it, but I'll follow up and see what I can find and let you guys know, of course. Yes,
Connor, is there any way we can get a copy of what?
absolutely. Yep, I will provide that to you guys. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, I gave him a copy, so you can send that around.
Okay.
And we're always available for you guys if you have questions on things. Our members have, decades of experience in the housing space, and if you have questions on the market, anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out.
So your association, are you in favor of these, good cause eviction laws?
We are opposed.
Other regulations and?
Yeah. Yeah,
Make
so our
it a-
association was strongly opposed to good cause eviction, and we remain strongly opposed to good cause eviction. We don't have a statewide policy on short-term rentals. We were neutral on that, Senator Hinchy bill. Our position is to, each municipality is different in terms of what they look to enact for short-term rental regulations, so we kind of take it on a case-by-case basis. We were strongly opposed to good cause eviction and remain so. There's actually a bill now that I don't think is going to pass, but it's the REST Act. Maybe some of you saw that. So, in order to enact rent control, rent stabilization in New York, which is different than good cause eviction, you need to conduct a housing study. You need to determine if your vacancy rate is 5% or below. That's the standard that will allow you to enact rent stabilization. There's a proposal in the legislature that would sort of eliminate that vacancy study and allow municipalities to use other pieces of data to determine whether or not they have a housing emergency. The genesis of that, I think, is because there have been many municipalities who have sought to enact rent stabilization, who have done a vacancy study, and their vacancy rate has been just above 5%, which doesn't allow them to enact rent stabilization. So we're strongly opposed to that. Doesn't appear that that's going to pass. Because the assembly, I think, is going to end tomorrow. And I'll just mention too, this session was really not a ton got done, because some of you may be aware that the budget was 43 days late this year. And the legislature and the governor frankly didn't seem to care that it was 43 days late. So a lot of things got pushed to the back burner, especially in terms of housing policy and that kind of thing. So we'll see what happens these last couple of days, but it hasn't been a very fruitful legislative session in terms of housing policy and a lot of the things that happened in the past. Could just be, the budget was late or legislators got what they wanted out of last session. But we're still tracking the electrification of buildings. So that's set to go into effect 2026. So all buildings that are being built with 7 units or less are going to be required January 1st of 2026 to be all electric. And then I believe it's 2029 for anything above 7 units. We were strongly opposed to that proposal as well.
They realize we don't have good grades for it, right?
It's yours.
I realize that. I don't know if some of the legislators in Albany, realize that there's a lot of communities similar to Greene County all across New York State who are gonna, I think have issues with this proposal, but
Does your group keep a scorecard on the legislators, the senators or assembly people?
we don't-
These dumbass things?
we don't do a formal scorecard. It's a good question. We probably should start doing that. We obviously do, provide, candidate contributions to candidates, but yeah, ever since the legislature has flipped, I think it was 2018 where it flipped to all Democratic control. Our association, many others have been confronted with a new reality in Albany. And we're trying to navigate the best we can, but a lot of the divide in New York, and maybe you guys would agree with this, is less Democrat, Republican, more upstate, downstate. And the legislature is dominated by downstate interests. And sometimes it's tough to sort of fight through that, but we fight the good fight, I feel, every day. We've got a lot of good partners. The home builders are a good partner of ours. Remney in New York City is a good partner of ours, but we're always looking for like-minded organizations and elected officials to help us. So, but it remains a challenge, and there's other bad bills that have been proposed. The HEAT Act is something that looks like it may not be passed. Again, the legislature is here until tomorrow. What else? There's just a lot of other, crap that we sort of have to deal with, and I think we have to, talk to our members about. We may not get a lot of things passed like we did in years past, but the fact that we're able to stop a lot of this bad stuff from happening, I think, we count that as a win. So, we continue to do that, but it would be beneficial, I think, to have a scorecard where people can sort of go online and say, legislative X, here's how they did on all our issues, for sure. So we can definitely look to do that in the future.
Connor, question
Yes.
for you about the property revaluation.
Yes.
Issues that's been going on. If you can expand on that a little bit, perhaps like talking about the pros or cons of this, and maybe to give a little bit more better clarity as to, there might be some misconceptions about.
Yeah, and I mean, Jason, you want to add anything to that? I mean, he's on the ground in Columbia County. I don't know what you're seeing in terms of assessments. I will say, obviously, assessments are tough, especially now with the increase in the cost of homes. Houses are being assessed 40-50% in terms of what they were in the past. So that obviously increases the taxes that folks are having to pay. I don't know, are you seeing anything on the ground, Jason, or?
I would just tell you that they're a necessary evil. If you don't reassess, what ends up taking place is that you end up with actually the newer people that are moving into the area, maybe paying the higher prices and everything. They're not going to pay their fair share of what they should be doing. You end up with people who have had it set across. I told Michael and I talked about this, like, I'm a local person. I grew up in Hudson. I live in Ghent. I worked in Catskill in high school and in college, and my wife works for the hospital and runs all the doctor's offices here. Like, we're part of this community all of our life. And I hear things like where people talk about, well, I want Catskill to stay the same. I want Hudson to stay the same. I grew up downtown Hudson. I don't want it to go back to what it was. I want to make sure that we keep moving forward. And when it comes to a revamp, we had ours personally, we owned a two-family that was in my wife's family for years. And that two-family was revalued about 12 years ago. My assessment jumped up about 180,000 at the time. My taxes went down. It went down because of the fact that there were so many other people that didn't have the correct assessment, that once they started catching everybody up, it actually put it across the board where it was very, very fair. You're going to have people get upset. My clients would be very angry with me for saying something like that, but it is necessary. It's the only way you're going to create a fair, even slate for everybody, is to make sure that you do revals on a regular basis.
Now, Jason, is it that they may come down because the municipalities are also reducing the property tax, or it's just some sort of equalization that happens?
Sorry. I was gonna say, in part though, it can be that the rate, what happens is that your rate's not necessarily going to change, but it depends on the assessment value and everything else, but what ends up happening is you're spreading it across everybody. You're not just having the few that are doing it. And like I said, you can have somebody who comes in and buys a $1 million, $2 million house, and if you don't do those assessments, those are the people who can actually afford the higher taxes. Those are the ones that should be paying their fair share. And if you don't do the assessments across the board, you're gonna have an issue with that happening. But yeah, it usually ends up evening it out, where again, like I said, mine went up 180, but actually my taxes reduced like 300 overall. And it was because my property, we had done a renovation on one of the units, and when that happened, I had a reassessment. If you're not gonna go through something that opens up a building permit, then you're not gonna see your reassessment actually change. And so if the assessment doesn't change, then again, you're just gonna be stuck and you're not gonna have the people paying what they should be paying.
I can tell you, when you do a reassessment, basically it's broken into 3/3. A third of the assessed property will go up, a third will stay the same, and a third will go down.
Now, I did notice in the last couple of years, this requirement that comes through on state grants, to resolutions proclaiming yourself as a pro-housing community, and I mentioned this to James before. It seems silly to me that someone, a municipality, a county, whoever has to proclaim that they're a pro-housing community. Do we have anti-housing communities?
It's a good question. It's a great point. I mean, yeah, I mean, I would hope that all municipalities, all local governments are pro-housing communities. Something that the governor and the legislature put in, because originally their proposal was they wanted to reach a specific target in terms of new development in the state. And if they didn't reach that, or if municipalities didn't agree to that, they were gonna go in and override local zoning to make those changes. So as you can imagine, local officials all across the state, especially downstate, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, rose up and said, absolutely not, we're not going for that. So the pro-housing communities was essentially a compromise from that original, we're gonna override your local zoning, to now, if you certify as a pro-housing community, you'll have access to all of this grant funding. So I take your point, it's a great point. I mean, every county should be, or every municipality should be striving to be a pro-housing
I
community.
just don't see what it wouldn't be.
And that money in that pot should be available to every municipality, regardless of whether or not you're designated yourself as a pro-housing community. But that's that's what they
On
define.
your other slide that dealt with the grant funding opportunities that you guys,
Yes.
Association of
Yes.
Realtors handle,
Yeah.
is that more of an assistance level in helping people?
Yes.
Or is that grant money that's actually coming from?
No, it's actually coming from the National Association of Realtors.
Where does that come from?
Member dues, it's all part of, we raise money for that type of thing, and the association has money set aside for these types of things. So, most of it is financed by, I'm sure, the member dues. But essentially it's, the local association will, provide the funding, and then we get reimbursed by the, National Association. And all that realtor is where a lot of that information is. I included that in the handout, but it's much more detailed on that website. So anything that we can partner with you guys, would be happy to do that.
Fine, one last one. I know
Yes.
we're going a little past time, but there's a lot of talk about we need more affordable housing. Pardon my ignorance, but what exactly classifies affordable housing for some people?
The dictionary definition, I'm not sure. Do you know what the definition of affordable house, like the definition of affordable housing is?
Like, what classifies affordable housing?
I would tell you, first of all, that I think that people are going away from that term a little bit, only because of the fact that the housing situation's gotten so bad that you need housing across every level. Affordable housing does come into play, but there is no, if you look at what the income levels are for poverty and, what the different levels are. I mean, middle class, when I recently looked at a study that was out, It was 80,000 as a combined income for middle class, and that actually blew my mind. It's not what I thought it was. I actually thought it was substantially higher. So it does depend. There are guidelines, levels, and the only thing I will say about it also, like going back to your other question about the grants and the communities, like I thought it was crazy when it came out, but because so much money got put into those funds, those communities that have to, declare themselves as pro-housing, I think you're crazy not to do it because you're allowing the communities that are following what the state leadership wants to take all the money that everybody's paid into. So I would just be very careful about that.
Yeah, that's
So-
exactly it.
What I'm wondering though is if within the governor's recommendations or whatever on this, that, okay, so now you've got, say, low income housing, you've got workforce housing, you've got senior housing, but then you just have housing.
Right.
Okay, so is the one that's housing going to be eligible for any of the grants? Is that all gonna be lower, all the lower levels? They get the grants.
It's conjecture on our part to sort of answer that question.
I think it's every level. There are grants for everything. I'm not specific. There's like a whole portal and you can go on and see that, but it's meant for housing across the spectrum. Because the governor had an original plan of increasing units. Oh, like I think it was 890 units over the next 10 years is what the original plan was. So it's housing across the spectrum, not just low income, not just affordable, not just market rate, not senior housing. It's whatever we can help communities do to.
So housing is housing.
Correct.
It's not.
Correct. They're just it's just technical terms that are put on to.
So my last question would be, okay, so looking at all this housing going into different areas. Do you guys have contractors or not contractors, developers that you're in touch with or anything like that, that you can push to different areas from whatever they have?
We talk to developers all the time, and the builders are an ally of ours. I'll say, it's just very difficult for builders right now, just in terms of the cost of their, the cost of what it takes to build a home, the process it takes to, get your project in the pipeline and get it approved is a big issue that we hear a lot from developers, planning board process, zoning board. We're not specifically pushing developers to certain areas, across the state. Obviously, they're gonna go where there's infrastructure, there's water, there's sewer. If there are places that don't have that, there's certainly, not. That's something that we've heard from developers, that there's a way to sort of build out some of these vacant areas with the infrastructure, make it ready for us, because that cuts some of our costs. Then they're obviously more apt to go build in those places. But if they have to do all of the infrastructure, build the roads, put the sewer in, that's a considerable cost. And their costs and those sort of impediments really don't allow them to sort of build quote unquote first time homes or starter homes or places where like my wife and I could go find an affordably priced house. Those just don't exist, because it doesn't make economic sense for builders to do that when the return on their investment is not going to be anything. So we have certainly heard, and that's something that we could look at in the future, is how do we take some of these areas across the state that are vacant, whatever, build that infrastructure so that builders know, okay, this is a 20 lot subdivision that already has the infrastructure built in. All I've got to do is go build the homes. It's considerably cheaper and would allow them better return on their
And
investment.
not just homes, right? We have businesses that could come in.
Absolutely.
Well, the bottom line, I mean, is they're gonna build where the guaranteed state and federal money is.
Correct. And they're gonna, and frankly, they're gonna build where they get the best return on their investment. I mean, they're business people, and they need to make money. But
Okay, thank you.
Connor, do you do anything with the homes and community renewal and grants from the state? Specifically, we had an inquiry about this +1 ADU
Yeah.
program.
I can certainly look into it for you. I'm not certain specific. I've heard of the program. But we do certainly work with homes and community renewal a lot, so I can look into any of those issues for you guys if you want. Absolutely.
That's gonna boil down to your town zoning. That's an accessory dwelling unit.
Right, it was the auxiliary dwelling units, and Greene County doesn't participate in the program.
Well, we don't participate in any of the programs.
It's a municipal,
It's all municipal.
it's all municipalities. The municipalities have to decide
So
if they
the
want.
county would not have to make any.
The individual tenants.
It's the towns that have to decide if they want to allow that.
But the towns could.
The towns definitely can do that if they want to. Yeah.
And that could be somebody that has a garage that wants to make an apartment upstairs.
Right.
Yeah.
It's similar to that.
The city, I know the city of Kingston just changed their zoning code to allow for accessory dwelling units. And other municipalities are doing it as well.
Okay. Thank you,
Any
Connor.
questions? Yeah, thank you guys very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Con.
Yep.
If there are no any further items to move before the
Motion
committee?
closed.
How's the tourism building coming?
Tourism building is coming along. I know Dawn sent a sort of, an email talking about the grand opening they have in July 3rd. It'll be open. They're putting asphalt down tomorrow. Floors are in, the inserts are in, the front desk is in. There's some fire stuff that is going to improve some accessories, but overall 90% furniture will be delivered next week. Salary there later in the week. So we're moving along.
I did attend the concert like Henry Buchanan, very well done.
Yeah, how you said that I did very there were no incidents, very well attended.
I had a first from
Yes.
Thad.
I have a
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Also opposed, thank you.
Yeah.
And nothing there, we still lost control.
First. Nothing on the agenda?
We're a little longer.
Good evening. I'd like to open government operations at 6:44. We have 4 resolutions tonight. I'll get right into them. Number 1, authorizing the chairman of the Greene County Legislature to enter into an agreement with Applied Business Systems Incorporated.
Right.
I'm sorry, Leg? Is that you?
Yeah.
Mark,
Right.
yes? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed?
No back charges.
Number 2, authorizing chargeback of assessment role-related services and materials, 2025, tentative roles. I'll make that motion. Need a second?
Why not?
Martinez? All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Opposed. Number 3, budget amendment and authorization conversion of archive tax map microfilm.
Lennon. Leg.
Lennon and Leg, all in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Number 4, correcting assessment roll, Town of New Baltimore, Katrina Whining, tax map ID number 27.00-4-33.
Later.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Does anyone have anything else to come before government operations tonight?
Motion to close.
Is that Len Rivera?
Every Lennon.
Len, thank you.
Made up time. Sorry, Ray.
Was also.
Yeah.
Time is something you never get. Also,
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll call Finance Committee meeting to order. Several proposed items. First is authorizing lease radio antenna site. Leonard. True. Leonard. True second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Number two is authorize the chairman of the Greene County Legislature to enter into an agreement with Applied Business Systems, Inc.
Davis.
Davis. Leonard. Leonard second, all in favor of that.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Three, accepting formal proposal for the repair of County Route 1 West Settlement Road culvert, Town of Halifax.
Like,
Mr. Lake, second,
True.
all in favor of that.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Four is authorizing change order number one necessary for the completion of the replacement of a County Route 1 culvert over Browning Creek, C1 N 01-00474-HAL, Town of Halkett.
like,
Mr. Lake,
true.
second, all in favor of that.
Aye.
Opposed, that's also carried. Five, authorizing purchase and installation of flatbed and lift gate for new Ford F-450 XLT sign department. I'll make that. Leonard seconded, all in favor of that.
Aye.
Oh, that's also carried. Number six, authorizing repair of faulty road bridge over Little West Kill, Town of Lexington, bin number 3-20120-0.
Like,
Mr. Lake,
Davis.
Mr. Davis, excuse me. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, that's carried. Seven, is authorizing quick quotes for paving contract under the New York State contract.
You.
Leonard, Mr. Buick, second. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Oh, that's also carried. Number eight, authorized agreement, Greene County Mental Health Center with Coxsackie and Central School District. I'll make that.
Chairman Martinez, just a quick question for sure. Where does this money that we give to Oxford House come from? From our own general fund?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second that, Charlie.
Okay, all in favor of that?
aye.
Opposed? Carried. Nine is authorized agreement, Greene County and Oxford House, Inc.
Davis.
Mr. Davis. Second, Linker, second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. And 10, authorized chargeback assessment roll related service and material 2025 tentative roll.
Davis.
Mr. Davis.
True.
Approve second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. One opposition. Please note that. That's a standard one anyway. Number 11, budget amendment, insurance recovery, human service,
Davis.
Davis.
Linger.
Winger, second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried also. 12, budget amendment, Greene County Mental Health, New York State Office of Addiction Service.
True.
True.
Like,
Lake, second, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. 13, budget amendment, Greene County Mental Health, New York Office of Mental Health. Leonard.
Davis.
David, second. All in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried also. 14, authorized agreement, budget amendment, Greene County Public Health Department and Health Research, Inc., Public Health Emergency Preparedness. Mr. Leonard.
Davis.
David, second. All in favor.
Aye.
Opposed.
Opposed.
One opposition. That's carried. 15, budget amendment authorizing conversion of archive tax map microfilm.
Davis.
Davis and the chairman, second, vice versa, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. 16, budget amendment, law enforcement technology grant.
you know.
Oh, first lieutenant, who seconded?
Davis.
Mr. Davis, all in favor.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. Number 17, correct assessment roll, town of Woolworth, Katrina Whiting, tax map ID number 27.00-4-33. Linger, Chairman Linger.
Davis.
Davis, second. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed, that's also carried. Number 18, authorization pay claims highway. Leonard,
Like,
Lake, second. Favor of that.
Aye.
Opposed, that's carried. 19, authorization pay claim, Martinez would like to second.
Bueller.
Mr. Bueller. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. That's all the resolutions, have tonight, the treasurer report, hopefully, and think it's, favorable. I didn't lose control, did I? No. Move right along.
Good evening, everybody. Treasurer's report for June. Greene County payments of delinquent taxes. In summary, collection of delinquent taxes in May of 25 totaled $489,939.34 compared to $243,712.30 in May of 24, an increase of $246,127.04. Year-to-date payments for 25 collections are $3,325,395.54 versus $2,276,017.17 and 24, an increase of $1,049,378.37. Greene County delinquent taxes, in summary, the amount due to Greene County for delinquent taxes as of May of 25 totaled $5,856,391.01 compared to $5,296,185.70 in May of 24, an increase of $560,205.31. Greene County's analysis of sales tax to date for 2025 is $19,450,507.89 compared to $18,565,670.66 in 2024, or an increase of $884,837.23, or 4.77%. Greene County town collection established total due from collections this year is again $36,879,474.29. Payments to date, $21,233,325.12. Update on your top 25 delinquent accounts. We had another very successful month in that regard. We had a resort that I know one person's been very interested in the town of Greenville, owed $216,457.97. Penalties of $62,073.39, made a payment of $278,681.36. So that is now off our top 25. We also had a residential, pretty high one, $24,066.78. Penalties of $6,388.60 for a payment of $30,605.38. By far, our still leading category is still residential, which is largely.
What town was that last one?
Carol. This month, I'd like to share with you these items, as I mentioned last month, we're working through our first quarter of cash vest and our cash flow analysis and our investment analysis. As I mentioned to you, we were bringing new data into them and we have a report back. To date, we have about $55.5 million, which we consider investable income or investable money. According to their analysis, we are within $240,000 of maxing that out, no matter what we can do of any available investment vehicle for the county. I've done some analysis on that. That means we're within about 44 basis points or less than 0.5% of being able to max out what we can do as a county from our investment portfolio. I've also done, with the help of Cash Vest, they're definitely earning their money. We've identified an area we think we can work on. I've done the math on that. That
could improve our return on a certain pool of assets, pool of money, by about 55 basis points. So if I can get us there, which is gonna be my goal for this month, to have that meeting and see if we can make those things happen. I need 44 basis points out of 55. So if I can get those, that should put us in a position where we have maxed out our investment income. And as you know, we've made some changes to get there already this year. The thing I wanted to share with you, I didn't write it down. I'm gonna save it for next month.
Good answer.
Any questions?
Keith,
Yes.
on our paying these claims here, this Justice Center bill, where are we getting these funds now from?
We have money in reserve, and we also have money that we have to use from the bond to avoid arbitrage. So we are starting to pay money out of the interest earnings that we have on the account to stay in compliance, and at the same time, that money is there.
So we haven't issued short-term bans or whatever for this justice?
Yes, a 1-year ban, it'll mature in December and we'll roll it again.
Roll again. How much was it?
20 million.
20 million?
20 million, it was 8.8 in cash. And whatever the bond earns during the time of excess funding will also be returned to the capital account as well.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, your money safe in Greene County?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you adjourn, Michael Ludo just wants to vote in opposition to item number 14, the agreement and budget amendment for Greene County Public Health and HRI. So just for the record.
Thank you.
Still there.
You said. You want to get all set. Mike Rose. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to seven.
Who made the motion?
All over? Aye.